Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Cooking with Collin. This week we're going to be taking a look at some unique breakfast items to put a spin on your mornings. Let's get to it. Alright, so we're going to start nice and simple with some nice and easy pancakes. For this you're just going to need a box of pancake mix, some water, and a spatula. And that's pretty much it. Just that, something to measure things with obviously, and this is all you're going to need. Let's get to it. Alright, so starting off simple, we're just going to follow the instructions on the back of the pancake mix box. So for here, the smallest amount that is listed is for 6 to 7 pancakes, and you're just going to need 1 cup of the mixture and 3/4 cup of water, or you could use milk. But you can always have these amounts if you want to make smaller batches, but I'm going to be following along with the 6 or 7. So in this case, I'm going to be mixing all these in a solo cup because that's the container that I have available. So we're going to need 1 cup of the pancake mix, and 3/4 cup of water. Then we're just going to take a spoon or something else to stir it and stir it until it is nice and evenly mixed. And there we go. Just make sure while you're mixing it that you make sure to scrape along the sides and bottom of the cup because sometimes the mixture sinks to the bottom and you don't want that staying there. You want to get it nice and evenly mixed. Next, we're just going to turn the stovetop up to about a medium heat and just wait for that, I guess. Oh, wait, I have time powers. Go! Yeah, snap cuts are more difficult than I thought. But now that we have our pan heated up, we just want to, first of all, make sure that we put some butter in that pan so that the pancakes don't stick. So I'm just going to take a knifeful and pop that in there, spread it around so that it gets evenly coated on the pan. You don't want that pancake to stick anywhere on here. All right, and once that butter is done melting into a liquid, we're going to quickly just take our pancake mix and pour in just a small little circle. You can change how big you want your pancakes depending on how much you want in one pancake, but this is about the size that I'm going to do, and now we just give it a minute for it to cook. All right, now while it's in this stage before you flipped it the first time, this is going to be the best time if you want to put anything built into the pancakes. For example, I like to use chocolate chips, so I just take a little handful and just sprinkle those in there so that they kind of merge into this side of the pancake so that when you flip it and it's finished cooking, they kind of melt into there. So it looks like it might be getting time to flip. You always want to kind of lift up the edges with your spatula to check how solid it is before you flip it. Ready? So I'm going to go ahead and give it a flip. All right, so maybe a little undercooked on that side, but I can always flip it back over to finish cooking that side. I'm going to make sure that my heat is up high enough because you want a high enough heat that it will cook it relatively quickly, but not so high that it'll cook it the outside too fast and then the inside will be left dry. You don't want that. That's gross. Okay, so full disclosure, that pancake turned out very wrong. It looks like between my batter was a little thin and I had my temperature up too high, so the outside kind of cooked and the inside was gross. So we're going to go ahead and start over, but no worries, we got plenty of pancake mix left. And you can always adjust your pancake mix. If it's too thin, you can always just add a little bit more batter until it's as thick as you want. And if it's too thick, then you can just add more liquid. So you can always adjust on the fly if your pancakes are running too thin or too thick. So we're going to go ahead and start again. I've lowered my temperature. I've added a little more mix to my batter. So let's try this again. Just going to go nice and slow here. There we go. That is looking much, much better. going to go ahead and give it a second before I add in the chocolate chips. All right, so as you can see here, a few seconds later, we see these little bubbles forming on the pancake. That's a good sign that the other side is cooking nice and evenly and it's getting close to being ready to flip. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my mix in. Like I said, you can do whatever you want on these. I've seen people do slices of strawberries or bananas that make for pretty good pancakes, but I just prefer using chocolate chips. But you can use what you want. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and check all this. This one's looking much fluffier. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit longer, just lifting up the edges, making sure it's not going to give me problems when I flip it. As you can see here, I'll try to get a little closer. You see these little air bubbles that I was talking about. Now that you can see them in more places, that's a really good sign that the pancake is ready. And there we are. Much better. Much, much better. All right, so we're going to give it about a minute on this side before flipping it over and seeing how it's looking overall. Okay, so it's been about a minute. I'm just going to flip it to the other side. And there we are, looking very nice and light and golden brown. The chocolate chips are mixed in there. They're not sitting on top. That's a good sign. Just going to give it a few more seconds, and then we'll be ready to plate it. Alrighty, and there we are. I'm going to go ahead and make a few more and show you the overall product. Okay, and here's the final product. As I might have mentioned before, I like my pancakes personally a little bit thinner than most, which is why this stack of pancakes looks so sad. But it's pretty simple, pretty quick, pretty easy. Just pancake mix, water, adjusting on the fly if you want thicker or thinner, and a little bit of patience. That's all there is to it. Next up, we have some waffles with a little bit of a twist, so you won't be needing any kind of toaster. So for this one, all we're going to need is a box of Eggo waffles sold at Vista Market and lots of butter. That's it. All right, so next up is our Eggo waffles, and for these, we're doing something a little bit different. Normally, you can always just put some of these in the toaster, set it for however cooked you want it, and be done with it. But in case you don't have a toaster or you just want to try something different, there's this method. So what I'm going to do is I just took these out of the freezer. So while they are still frozen, I'm just going to layer both sides with lots and lots of butter. And just get a good layer going on both sides. And I've already preheated my pan. So you want to make sure to preheat it. You don't need to butter the pan for this one. The butter on the waffles will do it. I'm finishing up this one. There we go. And then, simple enough, we're just going to place that right in there. Make sure, again, you have your stove top on a lower heat so that you don't get uneven cooking. While that's in there, I'm going to start coating my other side. For these, you're only going to want to cook each side for about 45 seconds. That's all that you're going to need. And of course, if you want them crispier, you can leave them on there for longer. But for the basic, I'm just going to do roughly 45 seconds. And you can always flip it to see how it's doing and cut it short or put it on for longer. All right, so I've finished buttering up that one. I'm going to set that one down, go grab my spatula. And we're going to flip this one, see how it's doing. And so like that, we got that nice golden brown on top. Just going to leave it down for another 45 seconds. And of course, if you have a large enough pan, you can do more than one at once. I'm just careful, so I'm doing only one in the pan. And this method also works if you have any of these that are freezer burned, which is when you leave them in a freezer for a very long time, or if your freezer's too cold. And typically when they're like that, if you toast them, they taste a bit stale. But this method kind of saves them from that. You don't really taste the difference between regular frozen and the freezer burned waffles. So it's a nice little salvation for any freezer burned waffles you may have. Alrighty, I'm just going to give this, I'm going to check on this one first. There we go. All right, I'm just going to give this one a few more seconds before I throw the other one on there because I don't personally like my waffles super crispy. So, and there we go. Alrighty, I'm going to set that one to the side and start on the next one. Now, keep in mind you might want to turn down your heat for any batch after the first, because some of the butter falls off the waffle and onto the pan, so it might cause it to heat a bit faster, cook a bit faster than the previous one. So I've just turned down my heat just a hair to adjust for that. And again, I'm just going to give this one about 45 seconds on this side. Already, it's been about 45 seconds. I'm just going to flip that to the other side. Again, we've got that nice golden brown texture on there. Maybe a little less done than we like, so I'll just make sure to flip it over and cook this side a bit more before taking it off, but it's looking good so far. I'm going to go ahead and flip it back to the first side. There we go. We have about the same kind of golden brown again. Just going to press it down to have the other side cook a little bit faster, and then I'll go ahead and take it off. This one looks about done. Going to give it a few more seconds on this side. Much better. All right, and this one looks good to go, so I'm going to go ahead and take that one off. And there you have it. Like I said, you can do these with as many as you want. The butter doesn't really affect the pan that much from falling off of the waffles, but a nice way to have a little bit higher quality waffles than just toaster, but it does take a bit longer, but it works all the same. And there you have it. Last up, we're going to be making some crepes. For this, you're going to need these pre-made crepes that I was able to find at the farm store, some butter or non-stick spray for the pan, and what's next is pretty optional. You can pretty much put whatever you want into these things. You can make it sweet or savory. What I'm going to be doing is putting in some strawberries that are now in season at the farm store, some Nutella hazelnut spread, and some whipped cream. Let's get to it. All right, so for this last item, the crepes, it's actually going to be very simple. These are pre-made. They're a little bit tricky to make from scratch, but luckily the farm store sells these pre-made ones. So I'm just going to toss one into a preheated pan, and this is just kind of to warm up the crepe because they're served much better warm. So I'm just going to give that a few seconds and then flip it over to the other side. Gotta be careful with these because they are very, very thin, so be careful not to tear them because they are that thin. All right, after a few seconds, I said I have my pan on low heat, and this is just to warm it up. You're not really doing any cooking. It's just to get it nice and warm for the toppings that you're going to put in there. So, but still be careful. You might have seen I was instinctively trying to flip it using my fingers because of how thin it is. That's not really a good idea, which is why I'm not doing it, because the pan can still get very hot and you don't want to burn yourself. Right, this one looks about done. Now onto the toppings. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm just going to take my crepe and my plate here. I've gotten some Nutella and I've already sliced my strawberries. Just make sure that if you are using the strawberries from the farm store that you are washing them first, because you don't want any residual dirt or bacteria to stay on there. So make sure to rinse those off before you use it. but I'm going to go ahead and apply my toppings. So first things first is, because I'm using a spread, I'm going to go ahead and apply that first so that everything else can kind of stick to that. And you can kind of treat a crepe almost like you would if you were making a burrito with a tortilla, except crepes are a little bit different in their texture and what they're made of. So I'm just going to do a really thin layer. Don't need a whole lot of sweetness for this. Just going to do that. Pop on my whipped cream. And then sprinkle in some strawberries for that tart flavor. And then just very carefully want to roll this and then fold at one end halfway and then continue rolling. And there you have it. And here we have it, all the breakfast items that we've made today. As I said, these are pretty simple, most of them pretty quick. The pancakes are probably what takes the longest, having to make the batter, mix the batter, and all that. But overall, pretty simple, pretty versatile. You can do with these what you want. And there we have it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode of Cooking with Collin. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to tune in next month for our next episode, as we'd love to see you there. If you have any suggestions for the next video on what we should make, feel free to either leave it in the YouTube comments or shoot me an email at this address. And as always, have fun, stay safe, and happy cooking. Bye.